Okay, we've installed a Assan GA-250 micro gyro. It's a bit of a fancy one with switches and stuff that you can do from the transmitter, so I've done a basic setup and hopefully that will be enough. It's a reasonably windy morning this morning as well, which makes it a little better as a test, because there'd be not a huge amount of point in testing it in a calm day. So this will give it a workout. Got here just around about 9 o'clock and the wind speed was 13 kilometers an hour, gusting to 24. By the time I packed up near 11, it's 19 kilometers an hour, gusting to 32. So a good test for it. This would be the second trip and we have a passenger. A stowaway, in fact. And it's going to take, like anything, a little getting used to this thing. Doesn't quite work like the PA on the Storm OSD, but it will make life a little easier to keep the thing pointed reasonably straight. It's not going to go arrow straight, but it does take the workload off you. The trick is, remember you're using air rudders and you need a reasonable amount of airspeed to counter the wind, which at the moment we're almost going straight into right now. So heading up this way, following the side of the dam, it's pretty well a crosswind coming off about 30 degrees off to the left. And at the other end of the dam going across it, it's a pretty well direct crosswind. And that's where things get really interesting, because you have some waves and stuff which I think is not lending any assistance to the gyro. So heading back this way, we've now got the wind behind me, and I'm pretty sure that I could safely say now that I'm just not got enough airflow over the rudders, and that's one of the things why we're wandering around a lot, and we actually end up here in a moment doing a complete 360. Both me and the gyro are trying our very best to keep it straight, but we just don't have the airspeed over the rudder. Round she goes. So the easiest way to counter that is, obviously, you keep your speed up. Or if you have to go slow, like going across the tail of the dam here, then be prepared to give the rudder, the throttle a blip to push a bit of air over the rudder if you're, getting too far off course. Because there is a bit of a balancing act. You've got to sort of keep it moving well enough to keep the steering way. But also you don't want too much water coming over the front of the boat. We're not running the HD camera today for that reason. That's why the ballast is there. The idea is to keep more or less heading towards this corner, that fancy looking thing. And this is the hardest part of the dam, going across here or the reverse direction. So this was probably the toughest test on the whole thing. The ducks have cleared off. They decided we've seen this. But we did have a seagull fly in. So I'm reasonably confident. Good morning, Jonathan Livingston. Reasonably confident with how this setup goes, else I would not be so close to the shoreline. So although the nose wanders a little bit, it's quite easy to keep control of. Once the water smooths out, it's better. but although you can't see it on the water, you still have a crosswind. Got a bit of a splash on the camera lens for this one, and as you can see, it's down my end of the pool. It's getting a bit choppy now, so the wind would be getting up around the 17 kilometers an hour by now. And gusting to the high 20s, I would think. You certainly want your sou'wester on if you're on deck, that's for sure. So once we get the speed settled, it will head off up here reasonably straight. So that helps it. You've still got wind coming across from the left-hand corner. But between the gyro and me, we're able to keep a pretty reasonable course. Speed here is a little deceptive. I think I can safely say we're going faster than it appears. See the odd feather and things go zinging by on the surface. Coming back here towards the wind. See, we come across that pretty quickly. Now the other thing is with the porpoising, don't worry too much about that because of the sort of the choppy surface of the water. It's going to do that more readily than it otherwise would on flat water. But we get a pretty good speed run down this way, and it stays fairly straight. So we've got a tailwind across the right at about 30 degrees, roughly speaking. Made a great sound skipping across the tops of this on the way past me. This video transmitter's got a microphone on it, but yeah, it just doesn't seem to be doing anything. So coming across this way, just throttled off a little bit. But in a moment, I'll show you going back the other way and on the last trip, and yes, it was getting quite uppish. Once you get past this buoy, this side's not at all too bad. Okay, this is the last trip. We'll head off to the left in a moment. Going at a reasonable clip. And like all of these things, a bit of experience makes a big difference with how far you push this. Not having too much difficulty maintaining a fairly straight course. Now I'm putting my tuppence worth in, but the control inputs are fairly gentle. And she's staying on line reasonably well. Back down this side again. As you can see, going into the breeze is more comfortable than going downwind. But even so, this is not too terrible. Once we hang a left down here, and it gets a bit harder, and it's much harder to keep it straight as well. This is where going to work on that throttle makes a difference in here. But as you can see, we can track reasonably straight. We'll head up the other side and we'll get a big splash of water in the face, and we'll call it quits for that. So it'll be interesting to go back to the calmer days and see what the gyro does then, but it's certainly of benefit, no question of that. So until then, I'll catch you later.